Found a handkerchief in the water, monogrammed DLC. Mean anything to you? DLC. DLC. DLC.
That's funny. He said DLC. How's it going once again, guys? You might be asking me, why did it take me so fucking long to review one DLC? Why did it take me over a week? And all I can say is, this is not a DLC. It's like longer than the average video game. Alright? The Witcher 3 Blood and Wine has over like 30 hours of content, probably closer to 40 hours of content. It's like as long as like a Dragon Age game or a Mass Effect game. And it's only $20. So before I get into my review, quick details, because I don't want to spend too much time reviewing one expansion. All I can say is, if you enjoy The Witcher 3 and you want to play more of it, definitely get Blood and Wine, because in terms of what you pay for, it is worth it. It's a fucking 10. Get Blood and Wine. I'm gonna say it right now. Get Blood and Wine. I highly recommend it. It has like as much content as like Dark Souls 3 or Bloodborne for that matter, and it's only $20. It's a third of the price of a $60 game. And I'll talk more about that later. But first, let me get into the gameplay and the story more. Here is the overview of how big The Witcher 3 Blood and Wine is. It's not your ordinary DLC where you just go from point A to point B. It is like, it acts as its own game. And you can go back to the main game, which are these areas. And I hardly did that though. I only went back to collect some of the things that I needed for armor building. But yeah, it's huge. It's basically more of the same Witcher 3 experience. You go around doing Witcher contracts, treasure hunts, you know, killing humans with steel and monsters with silver, and stuff like that. There are additions to it. You can now color your armor with color dyes, although I've never really cared for it, but you know, it's there for people who are interested in that type of customization. And you also have a home. You end up getting a home, and you can upgrade it. Now there are some side quests in this game that are really important and beneficial to your gameplay. There's a side quest that unlocks extra mutations for your guy, and there's another side quest where you get like a really cool sword that's like fucking super powerful, and they are missable. To my knowledge, they are missable, or at least that's what the game told me when I reached like the point of no return for side quests or whatever. So yeah, these side quests are really cool. They're really important. They have a lot of depth and story to them. And I highly advise that you try doing the side quests before doing the main quest, because there is a point of return according to them on side quests. So yeah, do that first. And speaking of the main quest, let's go to the story. Let's go straight to the story. Basically, it's about Geralt of Rivia. You know who he is, the main character. Travels south to a place called Toisont. I believe it's like French. To Toisont, as he investigates mysterious murders tied to a certain beast, they call it. Or I'm just gonna go out and say it. It's a vampire. It's about vampires invading shit, and you have to stop them. But it becomes way more complicated than I ever thought it would. It has quite a few plot turns here and there. It's a really interesting and well-made plot, although I'd probably argue that Hearts of Stone DLC had a slightly more intriguing story, at least in my taste. This DLC also has multiple endings, depending on the choices you make towards the end of it, like the last 2 quests or so, as well as a few heartbreaking moments. Did I forget to mention every dialogue choice you make could have severe consequences?
regret it ended this way, that I failed to prevent it. Hope you can forgive me. Rest in peace.
And the graphics are also really beautiful. They're not like the best looking graphics like Uncharted or anything, but the color palette of this area, this land, is very lush and green and bright and just very, very exquisite and very beautiful, unlike anything I've really seen in a video game. It kind of reminds me of a slightly more realistic Kingdoms of Amalur, which was also a great game. And it's just a very, very good to look at video game. It's a very pretty DLC. And that's basically all I can really say about The Witcher 3 Blood and Wine. It's just a really great, great expansion. There's not much to talk about when it comes to expansions because they are more of the same, but I highly, highly recommend it. It's amazing.
Damn it.
Other than the fact that you really have to get this, it's not perfect. As with most big games, or most games with huge areas, this has a surprising amount of bugs in it. Which is funny because The Witcher 3, the main game, never really had that many bugs. There were a couple here and there, but they weren't like, you know, they didn't happen that often. And this one, it did for some reason. I don't know why. Maybe it's a little bit rushed, because I know the release date for the game wasn't officially announced until like a week before the thing actually came out. So, it's buggy. We're talking like a few bad ones, like there's a treasure hunt quest that I can't complete, even after looting the treasure. It still counts as an active quest, even though I already completed it. There's also invisible load screen, not invisible, infinite load screens that force me to close the application on my PS4 and then come back in and load my game. So yeah, it's frustrating. There's also, earlier on I experienced autosave problems, and how it doesn't autosave every time you clear an area. This is something that this is something that was also in the original Witcher 3 that apparently they didn't fix in the Blood and Wine expansion. And a lot of times when I die, I go back from a far, you know, a way off in my progress, and I have to do a lot of things over again. So it doesn't autosave every time I complete something or every time I progress in something. And that's a problem. I mean, there are manual saves. For some reason, there's only like, you can only have like 15 manual saves across your entire account or whatever, your profile. But I've already used up all my manual saves. And, oh, I don't like that. I don't like the fact that I have to use manual saves all the time. Which, I mean, by the way, I was able to clear every area eventually, but it was just kind of frustrating. Every time I died by something cheap, like falling to my death like 10 feet, you know, and fucking Geralt is like, ooh, you know, then I have to go all the way back. It's unnecessary, you know. When you clear an area, you should always autosave it. So that was kind of a problem. So yeah, these glitches get in the way of what could have been a perfect game or DLC. I keep on saying game because it doesn't feel like a DLC. This is the longest DLC I've ever played. So yeah. Do I really have to show you the bugs? I really don't want to show you the fucking bugs. Oh man. I mean, most of what I captured are just like floating people and stuff like that, but god damn it, I've already covered that shit in Dark Souls 3 and Doom. Do I have to do it again? Oh, god. Why me? Of all the fucking YouTubers out there, why is it always me who has to show the bugs? God damn it. Fuck.
not surprised. Von Witten turned that rubble into a fortress. With a ballista in the lower courtyard, no less. Turned that rubble into a fortress. With a ballista in the lower courtyard, no less.
Well, that machine was most like there to fight off the winged... Machine was most like there to fight off the winged lizards. A whole host live in these hills.
I beg your pardon. Do you seek someone? I beg your pardon. Oh!
Now, as I said at the very beginning of my video about how the price compares with other games of the same content and quality, such as Dark Souls 3 or whatever, is that, in my personal opinion, expansions, it's okay to have a game be more of the same, quote unquote more of the same, if it's expanding the same game, like a DLC or expansion, not an actual sequel. If you look at the Witcher series, you'll notice that all three games are relatively different in terms of gameplay. You know, the second one, I've actually never played the first one because it's only on PC, but I don't know too much about the first one. But the second one was linear. It was linear, really kind of. I mean, it was a little bit open world, but it was also chapter based, meaning you couldn't go back to that area. Progression wise, The Witcher 2 was a very linear game, whereas The Witcher 3 is wide open and you can go anywhere you want after completing the storyline. That's a huge difference right there. The problem I had with Dark Souls 3, and I know so many people gave me shit for my Dark Souls 3 review, but the problem I had with Dark Souls 3 is that on top of the fact that it was only 40 hours long as opposed to the average 70 hours of, you know, the first two Dark Souls, it didn't feel different enough to have its own identity. It felt more like an expansion, a great expansion, mind you, of Dark Souls 1 or Dark Souls 2. It didn't feel like its own game, even though it was really good. It just didn't really feel unique in any way. It didn't have any unique character to it. It was basically more of the same, and I don't like it when people do cash grabs like that, where they throw $60 games out there, and it's like more of the same, and it starts to get boring, you know. The Witcher 3 Blood and Wine is an expansion. It is 40 fucking hours long if you do everything, at least, and it's only $20. That's 2 hours per dollar that you spend. That right there is understandable. And this is the longest DLC I've ever played. It is longer than most games I've ever played, and it's probably the greatest DLC ever made from any game, simply because it offers so much for the price that you pay for it. You know, of course, it also has a really great storyline, great gameplay, but the most important part about it is the whole package, what you get for your money. And in that regards, The Witcher, I have more respect for The Witcher 3 Blood and Wine than I do for the whole game of Dark Souls 3, because it makes me feel like, in contrast, I wasted my money on that game when I could have spent more money buying longer games, you know? And I think more people should do this. More people should follow the path of CD Projekt Red, because they offer so much for so little. I mean, the Witcher 3 main game was like over 100 hours long, and that was $60. The Witcher 3 Hearts of Stone, the first DLC, was $10 and it was like 15 hours long. It was still a really great DLC, by the way. And Blood and Wine, $20. 40 hours of gameplay. So that's $30 individually, but I highly recommend you buy the season pass, which is only $25, so you can get both of them, and you'll save $5. That's what I did. I bought the season pass for $25, and I got over 50 hours of gameplay. So that's what I really highly recommend if you haven't done so already. Yeah. Wow. So I guess my final score for it would be a 9.5 out of 10. I may update it to a perfect 10, a fucking revolutionary 10. If they end up patching those really bad bugs in there, because that's really my only major issue with the game, are the bugs. Which is which, like I said before, it is expected, but it's still it's still problematic because it's in your face, and oftentimes you'll find yourself in a situation where it is game breaking. So yeah, that's my Witcher 3 Blood and Wine, best expansion ever. Best expansion ever. Keep in mind, I haven't played all those Dark Souls DLCs before, but I'm sure that difficulty aside, they're not that long. They're just time consuming because they're hard. This wasn't really that hard, but it was time consuming nonetheless. So yeah, The Witcher 3 Blood and Wine, fucking fantastic. CD Projekt Red once again knocked it out of the fucking park. Man, these guys are awesome. They're great. I love these guys, and it's amazing how they're not really a big company, so they only concentrate on one game at a time. They don't mass produce their shit, like fucking EA or Bethesda or anything like that. And their next game, I believe, is called Cyberpunk 2077. It might be released by, I want to say, 2077. I'm just kidding. Probably like 2018 or something. But I kid because they spend so much time on their games, and they don't really care if it takes a long time to make their games. That's why I love these guys. They hardly seem to rush their products. And is it me, or is 2016 the year where all these series are ending? First Dark Souls 3 is the last in the series, then Uncharted 4, and now The Witcher 3 with Blood and Wine being the last Witcher entry. It's weird, it's messed up, and it's kind of depressing me. I will never play The Witcher again, even if I want to, and man, that sucks. No more Witcher 3. Fuck, man. I suppose I could always replay it on New Game Plus on Death March difficulty. That'll be a challenge. Alright guys, thank you very much for watching. Unfortunately, there's not much coming out this summer for video games, so I might not even have a review out in the next few months or so. My next review might not be until September. My Deus Ex Mankind Divided review. So, I'm not too sure what I'm going to be doing. I'll probably release something. I don't know. Stay tuned, I guess. Thank you for watching.
The Gamer Gods!
We have witnessed, and in fact on several occasions incited, many great and weighty events. After all that toil, I believe we deserve a bit of a rest.
That we do.